evening, good afternoon. Wherever you're joining from, we welcome you and thank you for taking the time to be with us today. My name is Kelly Osley. I am the Strategic Alliance Director for our Microsoft partnership at Synoptek, and I'll be your host today. So during the session today, we'll be discussing sales and interest and how that becomes an actual deal, and then ultimately converting just a deal into a committed and loyal customer. And whether you're in sales or marketing, IT, customer experience, I think the question is really the same across the board. With all of the tools that we have, with all of the data, with all of the AI, why is it still hard? Why does it still seem hard to move someone from curious to committed and loyal and keep them? And that's our conversation today. And we've got a fantastic group on our panel that I think is going to be super valuable for you. So I'm excited to introduce them. So Neil, he's at Microsoft. He's a senior solution engineer for AI business solutions, and he works hands-on with customers putting Microsoft's AI and business applications to work. Vanessa Paloma, also from Microsoft, is a senior solution engineer for the AI business process at Microsoft, and her focus is on looking at how AI reshapes the end-to-end customer experience. And from Synoptek, Brian Faisenfeld is our practice director for CRM here at Synoptek. He leads the teams that actually do the work for implementing CRM and Dynamics throughout the entire customer journey. And I'm thrilled that they're here to help. I think it's going to be super interesting. Before we move into the next step of the discussion, I'd like to hear from you. We would like to hear from you on what are your struggles in this customer acquisition and retention cycle? Where do you feel the biggest challenge? So you will see the opportunity here to fill out this poll. I'd love it if you could do it and help us with that. And the options will be, is your challenge in early interest and turning that into a genuine sales conversation? Is it qualifying that into a true opportunity? Or is it moving and those conversations to closure? Is it post-sales experience? Is it cross-sell and upsell of an opportunity throughout the process? So pick the one, if you will, that is the most challenging for you, and that gives us a great kind of a base point as to where your challenges are and where we can provide assistance. So if you just take a couple of minutes for that. Perfect. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. So in terms of moving to the next step, let's begin with knowing that we have more tools, more AI maturity, more data available. So why does it seem that it's just more difficult to manage customer acquisition today and not easier when it seems like it should be with all of that available? So I'll ask our panel, Neil, Vanessa, and Brian, what are you seeing day to day?
Yeah, so
Well,
I'll jump in here. So I think I love this slide for a couple of reasons. The first is I think the sprawl of tools really highlights why it's a challenge. As a solution engineer, I have the privilege of talking to customers every day and trying to understand what their pain points are and seeing where Microsoft technology can kind of connect those dots and address some of those pain points. And so what we're seeing is that because of these best of breed solutions, we're often seeing their customer data scattered across multiple systems. And then inherently, this makes it really difficult to form a unified view of each customer. And that fragmentation where you have individuals living in a marketing system, a sales system, and a customer service system really builds this fragmentation. It leads to generic, uncoordinated marketing efforts, missed opportunities, and executives end up seeing that as wasted marketing spend, low conversion rates, declining loyalty, because their teams, because of these best of breed solutions that often don't talk to each other, create an environment where teams can't personalize engagement or even run AI models against it because there's not that unified view. So that's where why I get the privilege of talking to customers about Dynamics 365, because it is that unified platform that connects those business units from marketing to sales to service.
Well said, Neil. I also think that we have to remember that customer behaviors have changed. A lot of the demographic of the people who are becoming our customers has vastly changed, and their channel of communication with us is changing as we speak. We've gone from a generation that liked to speak on the phone directly to an individual to a generation that might only want to have digital messaging, which changes the way that we have to approach them. A, we have to be in that space. B, we have to understand the different ways that they might reach out to us. I'm not sure if many of you guys know, but a lot of companies now have Instagram pages and TikTok pages. And believe it or not, that is actually one of the places where a customer will voice to you the issues that they're having with your specific brand and products. That means that we have to meet them where they are. We have to hear the voice of the customer, what their interpretation and what their relationship is with us. Because if one person shouts very loud in a space that we're not in, A, it's hard to kind of put that back on course, but also others that might be thinking of you guys as an option are hearing that as well. Now, that doesn't mean that the voice goes away, but it means that we're adding additional layers. And that means that we have to equip our teams to understand how to approach these different channels and to aggregate that information and actually make it actionable. Where are we lacking? Where do we need more presence? Do we need more people to address this? And how do we start eliminating those problems as they actually arise?
Yeah, thank you, Vanessa and Neil. Yeah, you guys highlight a couple of key things, and it's the complexity of everything now. It's way more complex, and I guess one of the things we're seeing across almost every industry represented here is that the customer engagement has become significantly more complex, right? Customers aren't following a linear path anymore. They're researching independently, engaging across, multiple channels, and expecting organizations to recognize them regardless of where they enter the journey. At the same time, companies have invested heavily in CRM platforms, marketing technologies, contact centers, and now AI. And the irony is about we have more data, more technology than ever before. Many organizations will struggle to create a connected customer experience. The challenge isn't a lack of information. The challenge is connecting the customer intent, sales activity, and service interactions into a single view that drives action. As someone who helps organizations implement these solutions, that's where we see the biggest opportunity, for customer insights, for dynamic sales, customer service, and dynamics contact center.
Well, thank you. Thank you, all three of you. So it looks like the tools are clearly, they're not the whole story. So taking those away for a second, if it's not technology, what is the biggest challenge in the customer journey? Vanessa, Neil, Brian, can I get some input from you on that?
Yeah, I think certainly when we look at it in the customers that we talk to, the breakdown generally happens between the teams, from marketing to sales, from sales to service. And I think without that cohesive platform and that handoff, things break down. So as an example, from a customer I was talking to just last week, their marketing teams were kind of graded on, well, did we create enough leads, and were they sent to the sales team? It wasn't even about the quality of the leads, it was simply the volume. And I think that breakdown happens regardless of the solutions that or technology that organizations may use. So one of the things where we've helped customers is say, look, with a marketing platform, you can understand all of those digital signals that they may be leaving behind, right? How long or which pages are they viewing? How long are they staying on those pages? Even just a submission of web forms to understand their direct interests. Are they clicking on the emails and the follow-up? All of those signals typically have lived in just marketing solutions in a silo, but with that platform approach, you're able to take all those signals, grade them with AI, give that full context from marketing to sales. So a seller doesn't just look at a lead and is wondering, what to do next. They see, okay, they downloaded this white paper. Oh, they're interested in this product and service. And that full context just helps with the handoff, not just between marketing and sales, but also between the systems as well. So I think from certainly my lens, that's typically where we see the breakdown and where Microsoft is kind of best positioned to help.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that completely. I do think it really is in between that communication or that handoff. In the discussions that I've been having, I both see people who are retailers selling to consumers. I see financial services and even manufacturing. one of the things I've noticed that tends to be the biggest place that people have issues is that visibility into the information. If I show up at someone's site and all of a sudden they've been having a support issue, so let's say it's sales, they've been having a support issue for the last month, obviously that individual is going to have a very different attitude from you walking in trying to sell a new piece of machinery. Or if I'm someone in retail and I've sent you a number of different coupons, but I have open cases, your question is, okay, wonderful, you want to get the next sale, but how about you help me with the issue I have? So having that visibility, saying, do we have anything open and pending, and actually addressing that. Again, the goal here is to keep your customers. It's more expensive to make new customers versus to keep the ones that you have a lot of the time. So making sure that we actually nurture that relationship. And a lot of the times that is visibility. If I'm talking to you about support and you are super pleased with your experience, and then I see that you've got open opportunities, perfect. At the very end of that, I say, you know, I'm so glad that we were able to fix this. I also saw that you had a request for something new, that you had asked about a different product. Do you want me to lump this in together? Again, create that point of something that would have been friction and a moment of maybe higher elevated emotions. And once it's gone to a good point, then allow for the upsell and cross sell, allowing for those opportunities where you have reestablished that strength of the bond between you and your final customer, client, or constituent, and actually moving forward from that into something brand new for you.
Yeah, thank you, Vanessa and Neil. I think, you know, you bring up some good points, and I think there's a lot of commonality in that and are really consistent. And I think everyone on this webinar today can probably see that we have some of these breakdowns, and how do we address those? So, you know, from a marketing standpoint, you know, we want to, you know, capture that valuable engagement. You know, that data that we're capturing from that engagement, we want to make sure that that it reaches sales eventually. You know, sales, we want to be able to close opportunities, you know, and then transfer that to service, right? That intent, that what, you know, was the customer looking to purchase from you, and how do we execute upon that? And then from a, you know, customer service standpoint, they want to resolve issues. But, you know, what often happens when they're resolving those issues, those insights never make it back to sales and marketing. So there's sort of that breakdown there too. And if you're thinking about it, you know, from a customer perspective, they don't think in terms of departments. You know, they're working with you as a company, right? They don't care whether they're speaking with marketing, sales, or support. They expect the organization to know who they are and where they've been. Every time that context is lost, you know, friction is introduced. And that's usually where the customer experience and operational efficiency start to suffer. And then, you know, then you start bleeding, you know, revenue in that way. And you've put all that effort up front to get that customer, and it's retaining them and then further engaging them through that life cycle.
That's great. Thanks to all three of you for that information. But before I forget, I should have said this at the beginning. We would love to have questions from you. We love that. So if you do have them, please put them in the Q&A section. We'll take all of those at the end and address them. But please, if you're thinking about it, pop it in that Q&A section and we'll address it toward the end. And so based on what Vanessa and Brian and Neil just said, the tools maybe that's not the fix. So what do we need to look at? What do we need to change in the way we think about customer acquisition and retention? Keep adding new platforms, we keep adding AI, but if the outcome isn't really changing, where does our thinking need to adapt? I'll ask our panel to weigh in again, please.
Well, I'm sure some of you may have already heard of a phrase called frontier firm. At least that's kind of the lens and view that Microsoft is looking at this. That obviously adding more tools doesn't always help. It's how you're actually envisioning the future for you guys as an organization and how you're interacting with your customers. So first, obviously you have to start with a plan. And for a lot of people, they don't know where to look at it. At least from the frontier framing, we ask you, think about enriching your employees' experience. If your employees are happy and have the tools necessary to succeed, typically they'll be more engaged, more productive. They'll enjoy what they're doing more because there's less obstacles and struggles in their day-to-day. Obviously, from a customer service lens, a lot of people in call centers do have higher, turnover rates. They do because of, again, it's a very taxing job, a lot of information and a lot of fishing for things. Now, obviously, when you're focused on providing a positive employee experience, that's not only crucial for attracting, but also retaining that talent. If I don't have to spend 45 minutes searching for something and it's provided to me based on the context of my conversation, that makes it easier for me to finish what I need to and finish the day successfully and positively. This also leads us into the second piece, which is reinventing the customer engagement. Now, today, Microsoft's lens is to do that through AI. So are you able to connect with more customers? Is it scalable and also has that level of personalization? So again, obviously through a lot of the things that we look at, we do believe in a platform having that interoperability and that visibility into the data across every single part of the business that we interact with, but actually creating that type of experience, almost like working backwards. What experience and journey do you want your customer, constituent, client to have as they engage with you, and to build around that? And there are a number of different AI tools that, as the landscape continuously changes, those channels of communication changes, Microsoft is trying to meet you where you are and provide some of those pieces to help you kind of jump across that gap or chasm that we're seeing, especially with AI adopters, and then what we call some laggards in the industry. The other kind of pillars that we also find are reshaping your business process with AI. If there's manual things that take a lot of time, as I mentioned, remove them, make those automated. Let's find the best place for AI in your business process to actually remove those pieces of stress, of time-consuming activities, and fit it where it needs to be. Believe it or not, sometimes I understand that AI can be the bright and shiny thing. Sometimes the easiest way to do it is what is the most boring, time-consuming task. Well, let's fit AI there because it's actually going to bring value to you, your team, and then on the back end, how it interacts with your actual customers. And then finally ask, are you actually, bending on the curve of innovation? Today, with the same way that the generation and the way that they communicate is changing, AI is being introduced, and there are a lot of customers that we obviously deal with. Neil and I and Brian's job is constantly talking to people about this business process. There are a lot of people who are excited, want to understand, but there's a lot of people who are already implementing stuff. They are truly becoming examples of what it is to be a frontier firm. Where are you? There usually is a bell curve that goes through, and we have what we call our innovators. They go straight for the innovation, the technology, and they're kind of our early adopters. Then you have people who are kind of majority users, and then you have the laggards. Make sure you're going in the middle of the bell curve, because if not, you might fall too behind and then realize that your competitors, because of AI tools, because of how they're looking at their foundational data layer, they have gone very far ahead of you. And it takes a lot of time, not only for your workforce to get used to these changes, but also for your customers, because they are seeing the type of service and experience from some of your competitors. So making sure that you jump straight into that and finding the places that agents can fit that gap and help you navigate. Brian, Neil, anything to add there?
Yeah, I have a couple things I can add. I think, when we're thinking about this, and you bring up a lot of good points, Vanessa, I think it's one of the most important lessons, certainly we've learned in implementing CRMs and AI solutions, that it's not really a tool problem, it's really an orchestration problem within, the organization. It doesn't come down to the technology that you're implementing. Over the years, companies have accumulated, their marketing platforms, their CRM systems, analytics tools, and now AI capabilities too. Yet many still struggle to deliver that connected customer experience because the underlying processes remain fragmented. The first thing we encourage clients to do is work backwards from the experience they want to create. What should the customer experience feel like? What should the employee experience feel like? Once those outcomes are clear, we can determine what data, processes, and technology are required to support them. One of the biggest implementation challenges we encounter is organizations wanting to deploy AI before they have confidence in their customer data. AI becomes significantly more valuable when it has access to accurate, connected customer information. In regards to the AI as therapy, not a Band-Aid type of comment, I think it's a great analogy because it reflects what we're seeing in the field. It isn't, AI isn't a Band-Aid that can magically fix broken processes. AI helps organizations become more efficient, more responsive, and more intelligent. Vanessa had talked to a lot of those points earlier. But if the underlying process is broken, AI will simply help that broken process move faster. We're not solving it at the root of the issue. So I think, most organizations getting the value out of Dynamics 365 coupled with AI aren't necessarily the ones deploying the most technology. They're the ones creating alignment between customer experience goals, operational processes, and the capabilities available within their platform.
Thanks, Brian. Do you think we could move, please, to the next slide, the agent slide? Thank you very much. So, Vanessa, I believe you are going to cover this, Neil and Vanessa, just to level set a little bit more on what a Microsoft Frontier Firm is. Most people have probably heard it and have an idea, but I think just a quick little snip on exactly what that is would be helpful. And then guidance on what it means to Microsoft and these agents that align to the Frontier Firm and why they're valuable and relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Kelly. And I think I want to hone in on a comment that Brian made around focusing on what that end goal is and what the end customer experience is and working backwards, because we see it a lot of times with our customers. When you don't have that foundational data that you trust and can run AI workloads against, you're just really fast forwarding to more broken processes. And so we're going to fast forward though into an area where partners like Synoptek can help our customers get to that solid data foundation where AI models can be running against, and critical customer handoffs and repetitive tasks will create that friction. And so with these first party agents that are within Dynamics, what we're able to do is kind of close the gap, and these pre-built domain specific AI assistants autonomously handle key tasks at scale, from marketing to sales and service. And they're really there to augment the human teams, and they work continuously under human defined guardrails, right? We here at Microsoft always talk about a human in the loop. We're not looking to necessarily automate every task against AI. We still need to have that personal touch, that human review as these kind of agents go to do their work. So for an example, the journey creation agent can turn a marketer's plain language into a full multi-channel customer journey in minutes. An outreach optimization agent can intelligently time communication, so each customer gets contacted at the optimal moment. And then even from a sales qualification agent, it can proactively research and engage hundreds of leads with personalized outreach. I'm talking to customers every day where they are working with hundreds of leads, but there's not enough time in the day to, help triage them or qualify them. And so these agents kind of, operate 24/7 and can kind of find kind of loose money between the couch cushions and kind of qualify those leads behind the scenes. In addition to that, we have the sales close agent. And so this kind of takes that opportunity view and identifies those risks for opportunities, surfaces those risks and next best actions for the sellers, and recommendations for how to mitigate those risks so they can help achieve their targets and make their number. And then finally, kind of with the sales research agent, supporting natural language dialogue to understand and deliver unique AI-powered insights. So really just kind of covers the breadth of these first-party agents supported by kind of Microsoft AI.
That's perfect. Vanessa, did you have anything to add, or Brian?
So those last 4 agents on the very bottom, those are the ones that are specifically attached to customer service or the contact center. So you'll have the customer intent agent. So it's actually reviewing live conversations and driving intent from either past engagements or actually actively creating them. There you can either have it launch automated flows based on the trajectory of the conversation. It can look for actual knowledge articles and other pieces of information that A, are needed to have kind of the complete view of what's going on, or B, again, for resolution. So it's actually working alongside you, actively listening to that conversation, logging what type of issues you're having, and then providing that solution. It gives kind of an organization a very clear view of why are people calling in, and do we have the resources to actually answer and to give them resolution. The second there is a customer knowledge management agent. I see this used all the time. This is probably one of those that really fits a gap for a lot of people, especially when they have either A, very senior teams that, you know, they say that like it's all tribal knowledge that they have that they're kind of working, but nothing's necessarily written down. And they're trying to create assets that can be used both internally and externally. This ends up being very helpful because it is looking at the exact kind of trajectory someone's taken within a case from beginning to end, all of the different touch points that they have, not only with their exact team sitting inside of customer service and contact center, but if you have teams as a part of the collaboration, if I'm reaching out and sending emails back and forth with other individuals, notes, photos, it's taking all of those specific actions and actually creating drafts for knowledge articles that can be used to resolve things that might come after. So again, for senior support people, or we'll call them tier 2 and tier 3s, they're actually able to use their business process as the framework for knowledge articles for newer or more beginner level representatives. This really changes the game because then those articles can not only be used internally, but externally if you realize it's a reoccurring issue that goes on. Then you have the last two, the case management agent. This is actually automating key tasks throughout the case lifecycle. So it actually can create cases from both conversations and emails. It can actually be managing some of the communication. Again, as Neil said, always with a human in the loop, if you like. We always make sure to mention that this is not autopilot. It is co-pilot capabilities or agent capabilities that work alongside you until you're ready to move on to that next level of automation, true 100% autonomous automation. But case management can also ask items on my behalf, send out documents if I need to, and then even resolve items. I know of a few customers that also use this at the very end, that if they've resolved everything, the case management agent will actually send out a survey, see if there's any last items, and then after a number of days, auto close the case. For a lot of our customers, that's the other thing, that there's certain points in that kind of case life cycle that might be messing with your existing data or your KPIs. However, it really was the end of the loop. But many of us leave those open because our goal is quality service. So again, making sure that we're also taking those into consideration. Your team might be working amazingly, but if the data sometimes doesn't represent that or reflect it, you might be thinking that you have an issue that is not in existence. And then the very last one is that quality evaluation agent. If you have a contact center, this is probably the one that might pique the most of your interest because it's actually you creating a rubric that AI will review transcripts, case details, communications, and check that you are actually addressing those problems as your company and organization want. Am I greeting the customer upon every conversation? Am I leading them with empathy? Am I providing case details as we're navigating through that case life cycle, and then actually providing a score? And then based on that score, you can let supervisors or certain individuals in your team know, hey, unfortunately, the last like 10 calls you've had have been under a specific score and we should work on that. Let's do training opportunities. Let's review these calls. So it's creating that call scoring or case scoring to help you understand how are my representatives actually navigating through these business processes? What is training I need to provide? Or B, are there ways that we're communicating with our customers that are not the most effective in the way that we're either A, sharing that data and documentation, or B, again, that level of customer service that we really want to create. Now, all of these are available with certain case management or contact center capabilities and really are fitting the gap that a lot of people have seen or things that they really felt that were necessary to creating and changing the way that they interact with their final customers.
Thank you, Vanessa and Neil. I think, just to kind of sum things up, I think what you're highlighting here is it doesn't matter really what department you fall into, but what you've really highlighted is AI has really become part of the workflow, throughout the customer lifecycle. I think from an implementation perspective, that's important because adoption is often the biggest factor in realizing value. The value isn't an individual agent. The value is what happens when customer contacts follows the customer throughout the entire life cycle.
Thanks, Brian. That was really helpful and a great illustration of sort of the art of what is possible and what's available from Microsoft. So if we could move to this next slide and look at what is stage one, like a more practical, like how does this actually happen? And stage one is the very top of the funnel. So initial interest to lead. When someone shows interest in your product or service, what separates sort of general noise or chatter from a true legitimate lead and a meaningful engagement? So
Yeah,
I'll pass that over to the panel.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I think one of the most powerful things we can do is basically be able to collect that digital footprint that a lead or a prospect may be leaving behind, as simple as what pages they're visiting, what white pages they may be downloading, even again, just that web form and the information that you're collecting, and using all of that digital footprint to then kind of score that lead. Okay, what industry are they in? What's their title? What pages did they visit? Which email links did they click? And that kind of follow-up response from the contact form. And it takes a little bit of art and science to kind of understand, okay, how do we grade these leads appropriately? But then it comes down to routing. Okay, based on this particular industry or this particular territory, how do we send it down to the right seller to then act on? And then, following through that narrative, okay, does that seller now have full context of this prospect? Do they have all the information they need? Which pages they visited, which emails that they clicked, which products that they're interested in? And, do they get that information surfaced, to them in the way that helps them prepare for that customer conversation? I think one of the things that I see with customers all the time is marketing may have these marketing campaigns to nurture these leads, but sales doesn't have visibility. And so some of the challenges that we try to help our customers address is over communicating to customers, making sure sales sees what communications are going out to marketing, that marketing sees the same thing. And so when we talk about that platform, when we talk about that customer 360-degree view, this is where that platform approach can help create a more cohesive experience for the end customer.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. Yeah, I think you bring up an important part of, just that lead scoring and providing a valuable lead on sales. And I think, when we're helping clients really implement customer insights, the conversation typically starts with one question: how do we identify intent earlier? Most organizations already have signals. They have, your various channels that you're communicating with or engaging with your customers and prospects, around website activity, email engagement, event participation, product interest. And the challenge is really taking that and translating those signals into actionable engagement. Customer insights helps those organizations from campaign management to journey orchestration, and then, also getting that kind of that lead score, right? And the art and science of it that you mentioned, Neil, and instead of treating instead of treating our, every customer the same, organizations can create kind of experiences and reflect more of the customer behavior and intent, really tailoring that experience to the individual customer. And I think if you're a CMO, that really means improving marketing effectiveness. If I'm a CRO, it means delivering better qualified opportunities. And then if I'm a CIO, it means making better use of my customer data that already exists.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything from you, Vanessa, that you wanted to add here?
No, very well said, both Neil and Brian.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go to slide 9 if we could, and say that we get that right. It's become a bona fide lead. The next stage is taking that lead to sale. And once the interest is there, how do we identify when and if the cycle starts to slow down? Brian, I know you're super familiar with this. Can I ask you to weigh in and tell me what you're seeing out there?
Sure. Yeah. So I think, one of the most common requests we hear, from sales leadership is help my sellers spend more time selling. No one likes spending their time performing administration type activities within your CRM or platform. And sales teams, they'll end up spending a significant time, gathering information, preparing, updates, researching accounts, and maintaining CRM records. I think Dynamics 365 sales combined with AI helps that administration burden while improving visibility into opportunities. From an implementation standpoint, we're seeing organizations use AI to improve qualification, prioritize opportunities, and identify risk earlier, which ultimately provides those sellers with actionable insights directly within the workflow. Ultimately, sales leaders care about pipeline velocity, forecast accuracy, and win rates. I think those outcomes really improve when sellers have better context and clear guidance on where to focus. They're spending their efforts focused on the things that can really get them the most, sort of closing that opportunity that we think is going to, have a better probability of closing, using AI to really provide those insights into that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Even on the adoption point, I would also add, I've spent a lot of time kind of speaking around the Dynamics platform, but this really extends to the rest of the Microsoft cloud. I think as a seller, a lot of the work really happens outside of CRM. It happens in Outlook from emails going back and forth with the customer. It happens through Teams calls and the transcriptions that get recorded. And so the power of that, being able to connect those systems outside of CRM, really surfaces some of those risks early, right? Oh, we haven't communicated to this customer, or they haven't reached out to us in about a week now. And so that can be a signal to the seller, hey, it's time to reach out to that customer. And so that's something you get from being able to connect to the rest of the Microsoft cloud. That really helped with CRM adoption as well, being able to surface CRM within Outlook. If I get an email from a prospect or a lead, in a single click, I can create that contact record, and it's going to be able to scrape their signature and automatically add things as simple as first name, last name, email address, and even the company that they work with, without me ever having to log into CRM. And it's really that connection and showing up in the places that sellers actually work that I think helps drive that adoption, helps drive that data enrichment, gets people to actually, use CRM without actually knowing they're using CRM.
Awesome. I think we can probably move to the next slide. But following up on that was great information from both you guys. The part that sometimes we forget is like what happens when we win. We get a yes, we close the deal. And then does it happen often where the customer might feel that it was merely a transaction, not a partnership? And what do we do to avoid that? So that brings us to kind of thoughts on exactly what you guys are seeing there. Do you encounter that? What are you guys seeing?
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the times in the conversations I'm hearing, it really is that, hey, the sales team's done their thing, but I have no context. I don't have historical information. I don't have access to their existing systems. How do I get that to where I am when I'm taking either we're going to do the work, right? We're going to implement either machinery, or I've already sent you your specific product and now you might have an issue or a question about it. Where does that kind of follow through actually happen? So I do feel like it is the fact that we need access to the historical context. Now, I know, again, you might have bought different products. So how do we make the connection between two things that are not inherently on the same platform? A lot of the times it is creating a unified profile of that customer and making that visible to me inside of whatever product I'm using, even if it's not Dynamics. So having that historical context, making that view available to certain individuals so that when you do call, I know who you are. No one, we've all been on that phone call where it's transfer from an IVR to a person. And all of a sudden it's like, hi, what's your name? And you're like, I've been on the phone for 45 minutes. How do you not know what my name is? All of us have had that type of experience. But making sure that when you pick up the phone and I say, hi, Kelly, thank you so much for calling. I see that it's about the order that you made last week. What can I help you with? Is this about the question that you had on the product and XYZ? If I approach you like that, you're like, oh, thank goodness, I got to someone who knows what they're doing, knows what I need. and your interpretation of that interaction is totally different. You're more likely to buy from me. You're more likely to have a positive view of our brand and our company. And obviously the relationship continues like that. So having that historical context, being able to switch from one channel to another. If you called me today and you email me tomorrow, I should have access to that and actually see, hey, I saw you called about this, but today's a new issue. Wanted to double check. Were you pleased with how we handled yesterday? It makes a huge difference.
Yeah,
and again, also
research.
Exactly. And then even having simple things. If you applied for a loan and you were pre-approved, when you call into a mortgage lender, I should know that you've been pre-approved. And I'm like, okay, wonderful. Let's get the next steps on. Again, it's having that historical context. Now, obviously having either a unified profile, if you don't have the same system, a great way to do that. Now, if you do have the same system and it's something like Microsoft, again, some of those agents can automatically give you that information.
Right.
And we do offer a lot of things out of the box. For example, conversation summaries that are available in D365 customer service out of the box. You've called, you've been online for 45 minutes. When I answer the phone again, I know who you are, if you exist in our system. If not, I'm going to collect that information. But at least you don't have to repeat yourself.
Right.
Let's remove some of that friction so it doesn't feel like a reset. And let me already anticipate what you might need based on the past, other interactions I've had. So again, we move from that sale into loyalty.
No, that's perfect. If we could go, I think, to the next slide, 11. I think this takes us to sort of the core of any relationship, right? Sales relationship, any relationship, which is trust. It's so important. And I think, excuse me, it comes up now with AI more from customers. Am I talking to a human, like a real life person, or is this AI? And oh, by the way, what are you doing with all my information, all the data of mine that you're touching? How can I trust you? And how can we make this transparent where AI is involved? And oh, by the way, this is how we're governing it. So let me open that up to the panel. How can we address this?
Definitely. Now, might sound funny, but we are already getting questions of this. Both Neil and myself have actually been on phone calls with customers and with our colleagues where someone literally asks, just to double check, are you a real person? Which is such an interesting question in today's day and age. AI has obviously made leaps and bounds in what we're able to do, both from a visual representation and also from the types of responses and types of natural language that we can provide. Here at Microsoft, if you call our support system, we've actually also made it so that we had the option to make the voice sound exactly like a real person. We made the decision to make it still sound slightly synthetic so that there was no question of whether you were talking to a real person or if it was a virtual agent. Now, as you're considering your AI choices, either A, making a clarification at the beginning of that engagement, hey, by the way, this is a virtual agent. If you need a live person, please ask. Or, hey, this, again, for a lot of states, there's compliance things, recording and transcription. You have to let someone know that you're recording. So again, making sure that we put those specific business processes and policies in place to A, protect not only you as an organization, but your end customer. Now, transparency. Is this email being generated by AI? If you use Teams, you've probably seen generated by AI, please review. Those things are very important to continue moving forward. And as you're looking at the governance of some of these things, we do have some products called Agent 365 that allows you to see what AI agents are published inside of your organization, what data points are they touching. Again, we always respect security rules, and whoever is authoring these tools can ask, I'm making this agent and I'm going to use the credit or the security role of the individual interacting with it. So if I was just a customer, I'm going to look at only the things that a customer should have access to. And if I'm a leadership, part of the leadership team, they're going to have a different level of access. And please note that here at Microsoft, anytime you use one of our AI products, your data is yours. We are not using it to train any AI model. The governance and security of your data remains yours. You have the accessibility to it, but it is never being utilized for any training materials. But again, we also want to provide you the tools for accessibility, visibility to the people using this. Risks, if there are any risks, we do flag those, that based on the way that you've offered something, if there is a risk, we do make you note, there's a notification that says, please note the way that this was built, these two pieces might be out of compliance with some of your existing policies, or you might want to change it so that you have further authentication, making sure that you provide additional security rules for your users as they interact with this. So again, we understand that trust and governance is extremely important, and we're trying to provide you the tools to not only have that inside of your organization, but as you push AI or you have AI as an interaction point between you and your final customer.
Vanessa, that was excellent information. Brian, did you have anything to add before we go to your next slide?
Yeah, just a couple of comments, but yeah, Vanessa, you covered everything, a lot of the key items around, certainly governance and trust. And I think with every implementation we're doing around AI, it always comes back to governance and trust with the customers we're working with. And we keep that as part of the conversation, in any implementation. Some of the questions we get are, what data can AI access? What actions can it take? How do you maintain compliance? Because your data is going to change over time. Your processes are going to change. Your compliance has to adjust with that. So the organizations that we see that are moving fastest with AI are also the ones putting in the strongest governance, the framework, the framework around that in place right at the very beginning, and then evolving that over time.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
I think if we can go to slide 12, please. We'll keep this going. And Brian, if you can sort of illustrate, how does all of this come together, and how do we at Synoptek help in that journey?
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I think, this slide for me really captures what we're helping clients achieve. We talked about this earlier, but, within customer insights, this really helps the organizations understand your customer intent, right? We're gathering that ahead of time, and then transferring that on to the sales team. And with dynamic sales, we're leveraging that platform coupled with AI to help convert that intent into revenue. And then, once we get into the customer service, we want to really help protect and grow that relationship over time. We don't want to, again, put up all that upfront effort to get that customer sort of in our front door and then have them exit early, right? We want to keep them there for the long term. And AI really enhances each stage. But the real value comes from connecting them all together and connecting all of the stages together. When organizations can carry context across the customer lifecycle, they really, create a better experience for customers and better outcomes for the business. The opportunity really isn't deploying AI in marketing or sales or service independently. The opportunity is creating that connected customer lifecycle where every interaction becomes more informed than the one before it. Right? That's how we retain the customers over instead of over a year or 2 years, for potentially for decades, right? We want to keep that. We want to keep that customer with us and grow with them throughout that journey.
That's awesome. Can we move to slide 13, please, sir? Great. And can you walk us through the agents here, Brian, and how they're helpful?
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I know Microsoft highlighted, Vanessa and Neil highlighted some agents that come out of the box, but Synoptek, we've also created some agents for some very specific use cases. I just wanted to take a moment here and highlight a couple of them. One of these was an AI-driven knowledge hub that's really agnostic, again, to platform. But we created more of a conversational AI hub that allowed us to, or allow the customer really to extract data from all these different disparate data sources, and within the Dynamics platform, but pulling that data in for retrieval and insights to better inform the customer service person of sort of the interactions that they're about to have or going to be having with that particular customer, so they could provide, the answers that the customer's expecting. The other is, a couple on the sales side, we have a forecast flow agent that we created. So it takes that, again, that lead and allows us to provide better demand generation. And then once they get to, that opportunity and quote, really pulling that data in from the ERP side and allow the salesperson those insights to set expectations around products and services they may be selling to that prospect or customer. So it gives them that real-time information. And then coupled with that too, we had a product lookup agent as well. So this really cobbled information in from their website, their ERP, and other data warehouse and CRM into a single chat agent. We're actually deployed it within Teams, so they don't even have to be. Neil brought this up. They don't even have to be a CRM user per se, but they can leverage it within Teams, coupled with all that data that you have as an organization, and be able to get actionable insights right then and there while they're on the phone with the customer or they're in front of them. And the last one is around contract, sort of your contract information. You may be implementing all different types of forms of contracts, and being able to pull that metadata out of that contract and then transfer that potentially into other systems. And we have sort of this NDA metadata extraction agent, as well as this metadata extractor agent that we use for contract data. It could be contracts that your customers are also providing, from a vendor standpoint as well. So we've leveraged this in a couple of different areas.
Thanks, Brian. I think if we can roll to the next slide, that was a really great illustration of sort of how this all comes together. And we want you to know from Microsoft, from Synoptek, that you're not alone in this, and you don't have to master all components of this customer acquisition, customer retention journey at once. But the question is probably, where's the best place to start for you guys? And that's where we can help. Synoptek would like to offer a workshop, complimentary, confidential, for everybody who's attending the workshop or this session. And you can pick from several areas. You can also scan the QR code if that's an easier way for you to fill that out. You can pick engagement to lead with customer insights, lead to sale with dynamic CRM. You can look at sales to retention, which is contact center. And you could pick one, you could pick two, you could pick all three. So if you could do that for us, just take a moment, then you will hear back from somebody on our team to make sure that gets scheduled and set up with you guys. And while you're doing that, I would like to just take a moment to tell you about Synoptek. We are a managed experience provider in MXP, and we bring together advisory, AI, cloud data, cybersecurity, and managed services in one integrated model so that our customers are not stitching together 4 or 5 companies or vendors doing this similar work. And with 1,200 plus clients and delivery teams across the US, India, and Canada, we sort of pair this scalable global scale that we have with accountability and advisory-led approach, AI-enabled operations, and really a maniacal concentration on measurable results for our customer. And that's the engine behind everything you saw today and everything that we would bring to the table for you. If I'd like to open this up to questions right now, if I could. So please, if you have one and you haven't popped it in the window, please do so. I think we probably have a couple coming in as well. Did I see one out here? Q&A. Let me just see one moment, please. Yes, it says treating AI as therapy, not a Band-Aid. Would love to hear the panel's thought leadership around this. So can I ask Vanessa, would you like to jump in on that one, please?
Of course, no problem. So yes, I do think that at least in a lot of the discussions that we have, people do ask if AI can solve everything, but also a lot of the times they are not at the place of thinking that, hey, my business process might need to change. What does my data look like? They think that just adding AI is suddenly going to alleviate the stresses of A, either a business process, or B, the lack of data. So we have to walk them through that and thinking of this as it's a reiterative process. We have to first kind of look at holistically from beginning to end what process you're looking at, where are the actual points of what we'll call gap or failure, and then actually see, does AI make the most sense? I think what you'll find not only from Microsoft, but also Synoptek, is that our goal is to make whatever process you're facing to resolve it, to help you find the best path forward. If AI is the right fit, that would be our recommendation. But I know Synoptek and the way that they approach certain things, they're going to give you the best alleviation for what you guys are facing. If that's cleaning up your data, that's the path we'll go. If it's understanding that maybe you're missing a step or an integration to a different system, that's the path that we'll go. And then if AI can truly give you that leverage or that edge, that's where we would also suggest and move towards that path. Some people think that, again, you have a wound that is bleeding in terms of revenue, and I'm just going to put AI and it's going to fix everything. Our goal is A, to truly suture the wound, and then to actually provide the rehabilitation, the therapy, to finding solutions, to having the adoption internally, and also for then doing the opposite side, changing the way that your customer engages with you from the back end moving forward.
Okay.
And obviously, Brian can probably add a little bit more from Synoptek's specific view, but I also know how well you guys work with customers, finding out what the best path forward for them is.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I may try and take a couple others that popped up in the side chat. What is the biggest gap between what customers want from AI and what they're set up to do today? Who would like to take that?
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. I'll take that one.
Great.
Most of the organizations that we work with, they want an AI agent to operate like experienced employees. They understand their customers, their business processes and their policies. And the challenge is that many organizations are still, working to connect the information. Those agents need to be, for those agents that need to be effective. I think an example is, a sales agent to identify, the best opportunity to pursue, but customer engagement, like that underlying customer engagement data may not be fully connected. They also want a customer service agent to provide, maybe highly personalized support, but they may not have a full view of the customer history. An example on the marketing side is, you want your marketing agent to deliver the right kind of curated message to your prospects and customers, but that data, that insights data may not be in one place. I think what we're finding is that many of these organizations see the greatest success with AI agents have invested in, connecting that customer data, standardizing business processes and establishing, that clear governance around how those agents operate. I think once that foundation's in place and knowing that, agents can become incredibly powerful because they're able to act with the context needed to support the employees and customers effectively.
Perfect. Thank you. I think we have actually 1 minute, so we should probably close out. I want to thank our speakers, Neil, Vanessa, Brian. Thank you so much. This was super helpful, very educational, and a really practical conversation to what customers are facing today. And then to our attendees, I know you're all busy. I appreciate you taking time and spending it with us today. That means a lot. And I know that you have many other things you could be spending your time on. So great gratitude we have there. If what we said today resonated, and I really hope it did, please book that workshop. We would love the opportunity to help and engage with you. And we value any change we can make for the better in your organization. So our thanks, our gratitude, and take care, everyone.